people like Owaisi and others, so-called fake secularists and communalists, who say पहले हिजाब फिर किताब. For me, it is पहले किताब फिर किताब और सिर्फ किताब. I will never stand for a party like the Congress party, which only for politics of appeasement or keeping mullahs happy. Rahul Gandhi is living in some la-la land. It's beyond him to get the sense of Bharatiyata. I really want to study Rahul Gandhi ji and his brain. I think there's complete fog and you can't see through. I'm very curious as to what's happening within his head because clearly there is no clarity whatsoever. Muslims should stop looking to the left liberals as the leaders, as their patrons, because they were only taking them on the path of confrontation and complete deterioration and degeneration. Sonia Gandhi ji, Lalu Prasad Yadav ji, Rahul Gandhi ji, Robert Vadra ji, Virappa Moily ji, Kapil Sibbal ji. Big names, and all those people are now there with Arvind Kejriwal. So India against corruption became India for corruption.
Hello, namaste. I'm Asha Bhatt, and welcome to another episode of the Statesman Talk. Today, we have with us another prominent political figure, the national spokesperson for Bharatiya Janata Party, Shazia Almi. Welcome to the Statesman Talk.
Thank you so much for having me. Namaskar and adab.
How are you feeling today?
Great.
Indigo hues. I'm loving what you're wearing.
Yes, I got the blues.
So should I dive straight into the questions? Some hardcore questions.
I should say rhythm and blues, R&B.
Rhythm and blues, R&B. Love those sneakers too.
Thank you so much.
Shazia ji, how do you navigate the complexities of identity politics and polarization in India's political landscape? Like the international media is outrightly saying BJP is actually anti-Muslim and it's Hindutva driven. You yourself are a Muslim and you're a part of BJP. What's your take on that?
Well, I navigate all the complexities of who I am the same way as I dress. Sneakers and bindi and sari and what have you. So it's like second nature to me. And I don't want to be bound by any one identity. I want to feel free, free as a citizen, free as a human, and also free as a woman. And I don't want any cages to kind of bind me. So yes, this is a question most often asked of me as to you're a Muslim, you're a woman, and you are in BJP?
Exactly.
Well, what is a Muslim doing in the BJP in the first place? So, well, I find it extremely easy and comfortable to be in the BJP. I feel now it's really my natural habitat. And I tell you why. You know, ever since I was a little girl, I grew up in Kanpur, and I always saw how things were around me, whether it's my ammi or my khalas. And there were certain things that bothered me. And I'm not saying it's true of all Muslim societies, but I'm talking about my own cultural upbringing. And I wanted to say and protest that there has to be reform. And we do need a better life, more access, and more freedom. So it's wonderful to be in the BJP and to be able to speak about uniform civil code, triple talaq. So the minute I joined the BJP, I think after a week, the entire case, the Supreme Court judgment on anti-triple talaq was made into a law. And I think I'm a strong advocate of reform within my community. So all that BJP believes in terms of nationalism, country first, on anti-corruption or pro-women ideology, I'm totally and completely in sync with that. People often ask me, you're a Muslim woman, especially when I was part of the Anna Hazare movement. They would ask me questions like, what are you doing talking about corruption? You should be speaking about communalism. But I find myself completely perplexed by that conformity that is conferred upon you. Just because I'm a Muslim doesn't mean that I can't speak about any other issue but communalism. My life is not about just being a Muslim, but being a citizen.
But do you think they've placed a cage upon themselves when they talk about communalism and things like that? That they're not ready to widen their horizons and think beyond communalism?
It's a colonial past. The English saw us as Hindu blocks, Muslim blocks. And unfortunately, that has perpetuated. And this is exactly what the Congress party and the so-called secular parties have done to us, reduced us to our religions alone. But we are citizens. We are absolutely equal stakeholders in this country's progress. So we are not just Hindus and Muslims, we are also Hindus and Muslims. But we are citizens. We want a better deal for ourselves, each one of us, as women, as citizens, as humans, and as people who believe in more freedom for ourselves.
You did use the word reform, and I know that you're very vocal about hijab, and I just want to know, like, your take on hijab and uniform civil code, Vistar mein.
Bilkul. You see, I grew up in a family where Ammi wore a burqa. And all the women in my family, whether it's my khalas or my puppos, and all the women who would visit a house, they wore a burqa. I actually lived in Chamanganj, Kanpur, and my father was a Maulana. And I knew that there was so much pressure on us, all of us, to wear a burqa. And you will not believe it. Every time you stepped out of your own room, you had to cover your head. And in fact, I would take a train, come back, get off the station, and the car would pick me, and I would go. And the minute I would enter the area where we lived, Chamanganj, which is an all-Muslim area, I would just put my dupatta. It was a reflex action. I would just wrap the dupatta around my head. This is the way I was brought up. And I know that hijab is not an enabler. And I also go against all these so-called modern leftist feminists talk about hijab being
Your choice.
Freedom of choice.
Choice, yes.
It has nothing to do with choice. When you're 13, when you're 14, and everybody in your family wears a burqa or a hijab or a chadar, as a little girl, you have no voice in the matter. Because you're told, and societies put such a premium on it, on your virtuosity. If you're wearing a burqa, then you're a decent girl. If you're not, then oh my God, how shameless are you? So those are the things that you deal with, and our parents deal with, and a society deals with.
Character assassination as well.
Yes. So
an
it's very
extent.
difficult for that becomes a part of social conditioning. So it's not that women enjoy it, it's just that it's just part of your conditioning and becomes a part of identity. Whereas it's not even mandated in Islam the way Muslim women do and societies adhere to. You see what's happening in Iran? Now the same feminist, leftist, so-called liberals are very much with the women of Iran when they want to burn burqas and are getting killed because they want to speak up.
Yes.
But when it comes to India, and there is a whole movement, and there are schools which say that this is not part of the uniform, and you can wear the burqa wherever or hijab wherever you want to, but at least as part of respecting the rules of the school, you should not wear the hijab. There is no ban whatsoever. But my take is, I go beyond that. Ban or no ban. There are people like Owaisi and others, so-called fake secularists and communalists, who say, Pehle hijab, phir kitab. Quran Sharif starts with the word ikra, read, learn. And imagine how antithetical to the spirit of Quran are these people. And for me, it is pehle kitab, phir kitab, or sirf kitab, than anything else. Because it is the kitab and talim and education that will take us to the next level of progress.
How does BJP plan on tackling this though? It's actually a widespread thing. एक दिन की बात नहीं है.
BJP has done a fantastic job, and I really salute our Prime Minister. The dropout rate for Muslim girls at the primary school and secondary school levels was almost 70% just 10 years back. It has come down to 30%, which means that because of scholarships, because of better access, because of better connectivity, and because of security, there are 40% more Muslim girls going to the schools compared to before. So, our Prime Minister has been so absolutely passionate and committed to women and to Matra Shakti. And in fact, if you look at the very important legislation, the anti-triple talaq bill, who brought it up? It was, of course, a Supreme Court judgment. But similarly, there was a Supreme Court judgment on Shah Banu. many years back. I'm sure you were not even born. I myself was in school then. So what was that law for? The law was for giving maintenance of some 500 rupees to an old lady called Shabano who was in her 70s. And the Congress party had a big problem with the Supreme Court judgment. And all India Muslim Personal Law Board, all these bearded men, from All India Muslim Law Board, who become the anointed, self-appointed guardians of Muslims, prevailed upon the Congress party. And Rajiv Gandhi turned around the Supreme Court judgment, had an ordinance, and said, no, there will be no interference in personal laws. And our Muslim sisters, daughters, seniors, they were really thrown in the abyss of darkness. So I have detested that bit for many years. And I will never stand for a party like the Congress party, which only for politics of appeasement or keeping some mullahs happy would do this to Muslim women. No. And I believe in the word of my constitution, equality, and even Quran, because even Quran does not believe in distinction between the two.
Interestingly, you use the word Shakti. There's a lot of talk going around that word. Mr. Rahul Gandhi ji, of course, you would know, made a statement like, "Hum Shakti ko fight kar rahe hain." What's happening?
Rahul Gandhi is living in some la-la land. And I really think we need to bring him from there and make him see India, Indians for what it is. This Bharat Jodo Yatra, Nyay Yatra is clearly not making him smell the coffee. I don't think he gets it. The ethos of who we are as a people. What works for us? What is that element, that tattva, that makes Bharatiya who you are? So he's totally out of sync. And no matter how much you tutor him, Asha, it's beyond him to get the sense of Bharatiyata, of what makes us who we are as a civilization, which is why he's always goofing up. What he said about Shakti was such a sacrilege. Even as a Muslim who was brought up in a typical Muslim manner, I know what Shakti means. The idea of feminine divine. It's such an important concept. So I think his conceptual understanding is very poor. His administrative skills or skills to execute a plan into action, I think the results of that is all too obvious to everybody.
Again, it's not a one-man show, right? I'm sure there are a team of people who are looking into it. Isn't the Congress aware about these goof-ups?
No matter what kind of team you get or advisors you get, you can be only as good as you can be. And I think somewhere he's lost the plot.
Isn't there a mandate that you have to say certain things, or you have to avoid these words, you have to plan a certain way when you're in public domain? Aren't these things planned by a set of people?
I think I really want to study Rahul Gandhi ji and his brain. I think there's complete fog and you can't see through. And I think you need lots of flashlights, to see through, and many X-ray machines and MRIs to know what's going on inside. Because I'm very curious as to what's happening within his head. Because clearly there is no clarity whatsoever. I mean, the cloud cover is too strong. And the flight is not landing.
Oh, okay. Ma'am, what's your take about Muslims in India? You think they feel unsafe and insecure in their own country?
So,
in today's day and age,
I think we really should study the history of our subcontinent. What we went through with partition, and there's a demand for a separate homeland, and unfortunately many Muslims had to go. Most Muslims who went to Pakistan were from Punjab, and not from UP as many people believe. And if you look at just sheer numbers, after Indonesia, India houses the second largest Muslim population. Along with Pakistan, we more or less the same population. So it is so unfortunate that Muslims are still treated as vote banks, as cannon fodder. And their presence is relevant only during elections for the so-called secularists. I love what Prime Minister said about Muslims and what his idea was. And I was thinking of the same thing all throughout my childhood, that I wish Muslims were not so overtly religious. I wish they spoke about other things too than just their religion. And I wish they had a larger canvas.
What's
So when the
stopping
prime
them?
minister said, the prime minister said that every Muslim should have Quran Sharif in one hand and computer in the other. And I think that's what I foresee and want to work on, because that's what we need. And I think the entire policy of these so-called secular parties, whether it's Mamta Banerjee or it's Lalu Prasad Yadav and his entire clan, or it's Mulayam Singh Yadav's son, Akhilesh Yadav, and the entire Kunba, so to speak, or the Congress party, or the leftist, or even AAP for that matter, they are looking to see Muslims down in the dumps without any empowerment. The more uneducated, poor they are, the more chances they have of manipulating them and using them as vote banks. So you keep Muslim deprived, and you make sure that you keep ruling over them. Keep saying, oh, if BJP comes to power, this is what will happen to you. If BJP comes to power, all your rights will be taken away. It's happening even now over CA.
So people are not smart enough to
No,
understand
look
this.
at CA. CA is one law that has nothing to do with Indian Muslims. It is just there to fast track the citizenship of those refugees who've been living in India since 2014. But you see that the tamasha they made, how they rallied around and galvanized all their resources to perpetuate and keep Muslim in a state of fear. So if somebody is working against the interests of Muslims, it's not your poor Muslim brethren, but their so-called leaders. And Muslims should stop looking to the left liberals as the leaders, as the patrons, because they were only taking them on the path of confrontation and complete deterioration and degeneration.
But if they've been on this track for years now, there should be something driving them to choose the left liberals.
Well, I think it's a huge gap, and I wish the Muslim community realized. And I tell everybody this when I talked about how Muslim girls have benefited. And I tell them, you look at the central welfare schemes, and I want to shout and tell every agency out there, whether it's your BBC or New York Times, or it's Le Monde, or all the, Washington Post, and what have you, that when it comes to the welfare policies of Modi ji, you'd realize that the maximum beneficiaries, disproportionate to their population, have been Muslims. You see, 14% of India is Muslim. But you look at central welfare schemes. Let's look at Awas Yojana, which is housing.
Correct.
You know how many beneficiaries there are? 33% of the beneficiaries are Muslims.
Muslims, okay.
If you look at Ujjwala Yojana, you'll find maximum takers in terms of percentage, Muslim women. You look at something very basic like toilets, and you asked me as to why I'm comfortable in the BJP. When I was in college, I did my master's in mass communication. And everybody got up and they wanted to, one of the topics was street theatre. So Ibrahim Al-Qazi's son, Faisal Al-Qazi, used to be a teacher. And we had to do a skit, street theatre, on one topic. So everybody, all very leftist, and people spoke about, we want to do a street play on economic depression and labor force and all of that. And you know what I said? I said, I want to do it on toilets of haves and have-nots. You know, the haves and have-nots, whole Marxist
Correct.
spiel that they keep giving. I said, I really want to do it on, I can't use that word, but defecation. And they were shocked. They thought I was kidding. And I said, yeah. And this was way back. I'm talking about 25 years back. I said that. And I said, how the haves have access to toilets and have-nots don't. So why don't we do street theatre for that? And this is something, it took a prime minister after 70 years of India being independent to talk about toilets. India had the dubious distinction of being the country with maximum open defecation. So come on, what are we talking about? Forget being Hindu or Muslim. Let's be human. I mean, we can't provide basic facilities, water, potable water. Do you know maximum deaths were caused because of bad quality of water? The infant mortality was so high. So basic drinking water has not been provided to Indian citizens. What are these parties talking about? I mean, Rahul Gandhi should hang his head in shame, and the entire Congress party, for what they've done to the poor of this country. It is a matter of great shame that we could not provide toilets. I mean, it's so shameful. You know, I go back to Kanpur, and we call him Chand Sahab. He's an old chauffeur of ours, you know. तो हम लोग सब इज्जत से बात करते हैं चांद साहब. चांद साहब हमें डांटते भी हैं बहुत.
अच्छा.
You know what चांद साहब says? मैंने कहा चांद साहब बताइए क्या हुआ कि जब से बीजेपी आई है पावर में, यूपी में क्या फर्क पड़ा आपको? बोले अरे बिटिया कुछ तो होता नहीं है, you know, कुछ तो फर्क पड़ता नहीं, लेकिन एक बात अच्छी हुई है. मैंने कहा बताइए. He said पहली बार ना मेरा ये कार्ड बन गया है, मैं बैंक जाता हूँ, उसमें पैसा भी आया है. You know that access, this fiscal inclusion, that Jan Dhan, the little card, is a matter of great pride for a very poor person who had no access. He's not a Hindu or Muslim. He's just somebody who deserves better, who the country has not looked at. So for the first time, those who are invisible, those women there, you know, हम लोग पढ़ते थे सूर्यकांत निराला, इलाहाबाद के पथ पर वो तोड़ती पत्थर, you know, and imagine now finally that woman is being seen. They were invisible. In these regime, the poor, the very poor, was invisible. Nobody cared. Rajiv Gandhi happily announced, oh, we have so many schemes, but barely, 10% of that reaches the poor. What did he do about it? What did all these parties do about it? For the first time, just imagine JAM, Jan Dhan Yojana. So first you have an account. Then you link it with Aadhaar.
Yes.
And even if you have to take the help of somebody like Nandan Nilekani, who actually brought it up during UPA's time, you link it. Congress goes against it. We win the Supreme Court judgment favors the bit that it can be linked.
Correct.
And then what leads to it? DBT. Can you imagine? So will we keep talking about Muslim, Hindu, Muslim, स्वर्ण, जाट, अहिर, कुर्मी,
मंदिर,
कब तक चलेगा भाई ये? कि गरीब को उसका जनधन कार्ड तो दिलवा दो, पानी तो पी ले वो इंसान, एक घर में इज्जत घर तो हो कि घर की बहनों को इंतजार न करना पड़े. Women had to wait, you know, till the dusk to be able to go. And do you know how vulnerable they were? I have been, and you know, not very far from Basant Vihar, a very affluent area in Delhi. There is a basti there, and you go there, and they used to say, we get so scared. Our little girls go there, and they don't come back. We feel scared. And so often it's happened that our daughters or girls we know from our neighborhood have been raped. Can you imagine? I mean, what kind of India are we talking about? I want to salute the Prime Minister that he thought about it. We talk about menstrual hygiene. Does anybody talk about it? Have you ever heard of any person, and all parties including BJP, who talked about menstrual hygiene? It was something which was taboo.
It was a taboo. Yes, I agree.
It is Modi ji who goes to Lal Killa, the Red Fort, and his addressal, he says, देखिए, when our sons come back late, we don't ask questions. But when our daughters come late. And you know, that was so moving. Which Prime Minister has said that or even thought about it? It is only a Prime Minister who actually goes to Mewat and all those areas in Haryana and launches this against the adverse sex ratio. For the first time in India, the number of women per 1,000 males is getting better. It was so skewed. So come on. I mean, for all these reasons and more, I love the BJP, and most importantly, I am so inspired by my leader, Prime Minister Modi, because I think it's just changed, and not just changed, transformed the way politics is looked at. I mean, look at the governance models. For the first time, the invisible of a country, the very poor worker, the vendor, the redi patti wala, is being seen. There are yojanas for them which work.
Yeah, the micro loans and everything. Yes, I get
Yeah,
it.
micro Swanidhi Yojana.
Correct. Shazia ji, as a former journalist, what's your take on PM Modi ji not addressing or taking any press conferences?
You know, Prime Minister Modi will not be dictated to by any Lutyens media. I've been a journalist for many years, and I've seen how former Prime Ministers dealt with journalists. How when they travelled abroad, Air India One was used. I've been on one because those were the junkets. when all the private channels could very well afford, our Prime Minister spoke to the people directly through Man Ki Baat. For the first time, All India Radio, the government vehicle of communication, was used. Doordarshan goes and travels with Prime Minister, and everyone else travels. And our Prime Minister spoke to people directly. And Prime Minister does speak when it comes to important issues, and we all are translating his vision time to time, day, minute after minute. So our Prime Minister does not have to follow the agenda of the Lutyens.
One way to look at
Lutyens,
it.
Elite.
But that's the question that's been running around in the circuit for quite some time, that the
But they-
journalists don't have a one-on-one interaction with the Prime
Many of
Minister
them-
on asking questions.
Well, some of them don't, because they were beneficiaries of a certain lobby which used the government dispensation for getting favors out of turn, and for thinking that they were the elite and they could do what they want. It was totally quid pro quo, and actually it was a great example of corruption and inefficiency.
So what's your take on corporatization of media? You think they can function independently anymore?
No, in fact, if look at Doordarshan. For the first time, Doordarshan is getting the traction that it is. As for privatization, that has been happening for a while. And you see, a news agency or a publishing house will be only as credible and considered credible until it is fair. So it is up to the news publications to decide for themselves as to how they want to conduct their business. I don't think there's any regulation whatsoever. And people say, oh, there is no freedom of press in India. You know what is the sample size of that international agency? According to which India is so low down in terms
Index.
of freedom of expression and freedom of press. They consider Afghanistan better. They consider China better. China, where the foreign minister disappears.
So there's no
The
credibility.
defense minister, let me finish. China, where the foreign minister disappears, defense minister suddenly disappears, is more credible, has got more, gives more freedom to his journalists. Afghanistan, when an anchor comes forth with two AK-47s behind and does the interviews, they apparently have more freedom than we have in India. I mean, would you believe that? Every day I sit on different channels and I'm asked all sorts of questions. There has never been a prime minister or any leader who's been as vilified, abused as a prime minister has. But it is a prime minister who was so dedicated to a vision of a country, Viksit Bharat. For the first time, a political issue is actually an economic goal. From a developing economy to a developed economy. That is Prime Minister Modi. And that is the vision he has for all of us. So, I mean, by leaps and bounds, his vision is way ahead. I'm like, just to be a little soldier,
Okay.
I feel so proud. And all of us do. Because the leader should be able to inspire you, you know, to motivate you. And he does. Your confidence is back. This is who we are. You see where we were before that, we were trashing India all the time. Now look at the value of a passport. We go there, we're Indians. I mean, I feel so happy about it, you know, that we don't have to speak with some fake accent. Just because my English is good doesn't make me a superior human being. I mean, I'm so proud of our culture,
We
of
wear
what
it on our
Bharat has been, the civilizational values.
Yes.
What is there to be embarrassed about and ape the West? There's so much that we have to give to the world, and we've already given to the world. You see Jaishankar ji, our foreign minister. You see the reverence.
He has a
people
lot of
have.
fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Gen Z and millennials especially. So moving on to another hot topic, the Ram Mandir.
Yes.
There are a lot of emotions behind it. And the Muslim clerics have expressed their dissent regarding Ram Mandir.
Do you
What's
know-
your take on that?
Do you know it has been said many times, and Mahatma Gandhi also said it, that, and this is the reason why the Constituent Assembly, which included B.R. Ambedkar and Nehru, felt that the word secular need not be there in the Constitution. It was brought in later by an amendment.
Yes.
You know why they felt that India was naturally, organically secular. Sarva dharma sambhav.
Sambhav.
Sarva dharma sambhav. Why? Because it is always believed in this panth nirpekshta. And which is the reason why, when it came to the Ram temple, they waited. And though it was considered the Janambhumi of Lord Ram, the most revered God for my Hindu brethren, they waited for a Supreme Court judgment. There was so much pressure. And unlike Rajiv Gandhi, who turned the Supreme Court judgment to succumb to mulladom and clerics and got an ordinance, Modi government did not bring an ordinance. Our government waited for the Supreme Court order, and something that was so important to the ethos of my Hindu brothers and sisters to have Ram Lala be Virajman at the Ram Janam Bhoomi. Finally, that was resolved, and a raging controversy for years. So let's turn this around and see it from the point of view of other religions.
Okay.
Let's look at Saudi Arabia. You tell the Muslims there, you are in a majority and you are almost 80% here.
Fair.
But where Mecca or Medina is concerned, I don't think you should practice there. I think you should wait for a Supreme Court judgment so that you can go there and do your ziyarat and ibadat and your hajra and umrah. Can you imagine anything like that to be said about the holy mosque of Mecca, Medina and Al-Aqsa? Can you imagine telling an average Catholic that though you are in a majority in the Vatican and overall Italy, but you know something, why don't you wait for some time? Let there be a judgment so that you're allowed to go to the Vatican. Can you tell the Jewish people that I know the Wailing Wall is where you go, but you know something, you're not allowed to go there, you just wait. But look at our Hindu brothers and sisters. Just like the Muslims view Mecca and Medina, and Ram Janambhoomi is exactly that to Hindus, what Mecca and Medina are to our Muslim brothers, what Vatican is to our Christian brothers. So, just as a person, forget the fact that I'm a Muslim, would I not give the same right and privilege and honor to another person of another community? So, look at just how tolerant and extremely decent the Hindu community has been, because something they believe in Lord Ram, and who is somebody they all look up to, they worship, whose name they carry within themselves.
It's an emotion.
Yeah, it's an emotion.
Yeah,
Bhagwan
absolutely.
Ram is an emotion.
Ma'am, they say you left AAP for BJP. Two very different parties, ideologically different. Don't you think Congress was somewhere in the midway? Like the apt party for you to join? Why BJP?
You know, the funny thing is, people who say this actually don't know anything about anything. You know, I'll tell you why. The entire Aam Aadmi Party was born out of Anna Hazare Andolan.
Correct.
The Anna Hazare Andolan itself was against the Congress party. So I have definitely, I mean, if I had to join a party, why would I join Anna Hazare Andolan? I would have joined Congress directly. So, and in fact, I was criticized a lot because I would say Vande Mataram. I was the only Muslim there, you all saw that. And I would say Vande Mataram happily and hold the flag. That's when all these leftists, and I can give you all the names, the biggest names you can think of, they would say, "Hey, don't talk about corruption, talk about communalism. अगर तुम बात करोगी ना करप्शन की तो और इससे तो नुकसान होगा कांग्रेस का, तुम भाजपा आ जाएगी." I said, I don't care. It's an issue. It doesn't matter who's corrupt. We have to speak against corruption. This is people's money. So actually, I've been against the Congress party, not just because of the Shah Bano case, but because of rampant corruption. If you see my old anchoring schedules and bulletins, you'll realize I've always said that. And I have disliked the way Muslims like me, like so many others, have been used and abused and treated like complete daft people with no power over their destinies by these so-called parties, and emotionally completely blackmailed into becoming political slaves of Congress party. So I'm totally against that. And the entire movement of Aam Aadmi Party and Anna Hazare Andolan was against the UPA 2 corruption. So there was no way I could join the Congress party, never, not over my dead body. And one more thing I want to tell you, that when Arvind joined hands with the Congress party, and when he was there on the streets during Republic Day and said, "No, I will boycott it," I was the only person. I was very much I was a front level front rank leader of Aam Aadmi Party, but I was the only one who refused to be a part of that. I said, no, I'm against the idea of you boycotting Republic Day. I was the first one, and after I joined hands with Congress Party, I left soon after. Because it was just not making any sense to me. We go around streets saying, oh, Congress is a kattar beiman party. Congress is the worst party. गली गली में शोर है, कांग्रेस पार्टी चोर है. निकलो बाहर मकानों से, जंग लड़ो बेईमानों से. पहले लड़े थे गोरों से, अब लड़ेंगे चोरों से. चोरों से लड़ेंगे और चोरों के फोटोग्राफ भी हैं. कौन फोटोग्राफ में है? सोनिया गांधी जी, लालू प्रसाद यादव जी, मुलायम सिंह यादव जी, राहुल गांधी जी, रॉबर्ट वड्रा जी, वीरप्पा मोइली जी, कपिल सिब्बल जी.
Lot of big names, huh?
Big names, and all those people are now there with Arvind Kejriwal. So India against corruption became India for corruption.
जब आप आंदोलन में थी, did you have a bigger picture in mind what AAP is going to turn out to be?
You know, when we were part of the Anna Hazare Andolan, Arvind used to swear we'll never form a party. So you won't believe it. I have gone on television saying this. I think Deepak Chaurasia was the anchor. And he said, will all of you part of Anna Hazare Andolan, will you ever join politics? And I said, मैं कसम खा के कहती हूँ कि जहाँ तक हमारे अन्ना हैं, जो मेरे पिता समान हैं, और जो अरविंद केजरीवाल हैं, जो मेरे भाई समान हैं, I used to tie a Rakhi. He was like a brother to me, Arvind भाई. वो कभी नहीं करेंगे. मैं ज्वाइन कर सकती हूँ पॉलिटिक्स, लेकिन वो लोग नहीं करेंगे. Imagine this is how I would speak. I was so sure because Arvind used to tell us internally, no Shazia, if we ever join politics, we will lose all credibility. Can you imagine? I'm shocked at what they've become. I mean, it's a complete turnaround. What took Congress some many years, many decades of corruption to come to this, they have managed to become as corrupt and as depraved within 7-8 years.
Speaking of Mr. Kejriwal, people are questioning the timing of the arrest. They're saying it's aimed at breaking Aam Aadmi Party. What's your take on that, ma'am?
So everybody watches news, everybody follows what's happening. Arvind was sent 9 summons. The first summon was sent in November. Had Arvind appeared for the first summon, there would be no question of the election timing because elections were just announced last month. So he deliberately waited. He wanted it to become this issue. And also, I think it has nothing to do with elections because Manish Sisodia has been in jail for 1.5 years. So the inquiry has been going on forever. So I don't understand what is the link between elections and this. And also, people should know something about my country, that there is rule of law. Everything happens as per law. So no, it doesn't matter if you're a CM. It doesn't matter if you are a common citizen. The law will remain the same. So 9 times he refused to answer the summons, which itself is, by the way, a cognizable punishment, punishable. And then you show up right at the end when the courts have no other recourse and say, oh, look at me, I'm being arrested. I mean, there's a limit to victim card. You know, when you do the same thing again and again, you get called out, you know, people can see through your shenanigans.
But do you think that victim card goes a long way in politics?
To some extent it works, you know, but beyond a point, it doesn't. People saw what was happening when this whole sharab ghotala was on. We could see everywhere the bottles of liquor being sold. And then you wonder that, you know, the policy has been made, a new policy, and then you see a whole lot of new players. Suddenly you don't find answers to why a South lobby, why has it moved here to Delhi to participate in this? Why are all the old laws that there would not be any booze shops near schools, colleges, religious places, why is all that being flouted? And why is the policy being taken back? Why is there loss of excise? The idea was to get excise revenue. But the government is not getting anything. So who's making the money? The sales have gone up, consumption has gone up, but excise is not being collected by the government, which would have been used for Delhi people. So it's quite, I mean, it's an open and shut thing. Anybody can make out it was done to ensure profiteering by the liquor mafia and give quid pro quo. And the quid pro quo came through kickbacks. So when they keep saying money trail, अरे भैया ऐसा नहीं कि रेट किया, कहते नहीं रहते हैं. अच्छा, सुनीता केजरीवाल से हमारे घर में 250 बार रेट की, आतिशी से 2000 बार की, कोई कहता है कि 3,000 बार की. सो दे जस्ट कीप कॉन्ट्रडिक्टिंग देमसेल्व्स. भाई रेट में नहीं मिलते हैं. वो पुराने ज़माने में होता था कि अंदर कैश छुपा दिया है. ये किकबैक्स आते हैं, हवाला ऑपरेटर्स होते हैं. हवाला के देख लीजिए कौन कौन हवाला ऑपरेटर्स हैं. अरोराज का नाम देख लीजिए आप. ये पैसा अलग तरीके से रूट होता है. फिर कैश में आपको मिलता है कहीं गोवा में. फिर वहाँ पे पैसे की ज़रूरत होती है क्योंकि वहाँ इलेक्शंस हैं. सो इट्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड अकॉर्डिंगली. सो लेट्स नॉट प्ले नाइव. नोबडी इज़ अ फूल. मतलब इतना भी बेवकूफ़ ना बनाएं.
Okay, ma'am, got your point. All right, moving on to my last question. A lot of Gen Z first time voters this year. What's your message for them?
My message to all the brilliant folks out there that let's look forward to this new India. Like Prime Minister says, this is only the trailer, and I want to tell them that you haven't grown up in the India that I grew up in when I was a teenager. So you have seen just fruits of labor of Modi government, but there is so much more happening. Go claim your destiny. Be a part of this success story of India. And let's work towards this goal of being more empowered, prosperous, and to be a great country that we are meant to be and that we are.
And for our Nota voters?
Well, make a choice. Just make a choice. Nota does nothing. So, Nota doesn't really hold any value. So, you're just wasting your time and your energy. Vote for somebody who cares for you. So, also my appeal to everybody is that all these years you have voted for different families. You have voted for the Yadav family. You have voted for the Gandhi family. You have voted for Banerjee family. You have voted for Karunanidhi's family. So this time, vote for your family. Because that is Modi ka parivar. And we all are part of that. And this is Vasudeva Kutumbakam.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being a part of our show and for taking time out to talk to me, Shazia ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you.